Welcome to Rodney Veal's Inspired By, a production of Public Media Connect, the regional partnership of CET in Cincinnati and Think TV in Dayton. Rodney Veal, our host for this podcast, is an independent choreographer, interdisciplinary artist, and all-around fan of all things arts and creativity, and he's excited to share another great conversation with you. Thank you for listening, and if you enjoy the show, please subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
I'm super excited today because we're going to be talking to the one and only Jes McMillan, who does such incredible things in our community with mosaics, but also connecting people through art making, which is a unique way of doing it. And I just think the world of her. And I say, hey, Jes, welcome to this conversation. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm doing well.
Oh, awesome. Super cool. So, I was going through, and this is that moment I told you, in our pre-interview chat, people. I said, well, we're going to do a little bit of deep diving, but I was looking through your bio and what I loved, and I, kind of went on your website, is that you started off with an associate's degree. And it's so rare for me to talk to someone in the arts who started off with an associate's and then went to the next level. Because I don't know if you know this, Jess, but I work at Sinclair Community College, and I do this for a living, helping students complete and graduate and move forward in their careers. So I'm kind of curious, how did you get to that place of being at a community college and then to the next phase of going to Point Park?
Well, that is a good question. When I arrived in Pittsburgh and started school there in, let's say, I think 2001, I also got a job at the Greater Pittsburgh YMCA. And I started working at the downtown branch in an after school program and kept that job through my first 2 years in college. And after I got my associate's in industrial design from the Art Institute, I wanted to kind of climb the ladder at the YMCA in my position in childcare, and that required child development college credits. And Point Park University had a sister agreement of some kind with the Art Institute. So my degree transferred in as a 2 year degree. And so I went to Point Park for another 2 years to get the bachelor, but mostly focused on minor degrees in art history and child development. And that was a great new, totally different experience than the Art Institute that is totally constructed around artists. But in the end, I got the credits that I needed and moved my way up through the YMCA pretty extensively before I came back home to Dayton.
So you are a native Daytonian. Which is really super cool that you came back. I mean, because you had an option at that point to pretty much go anywhere you wanted. I mean, was there any just deciding factor to come back to Dayton, Ohio, or just it's home?
Well, I did. Yes, it's home. I love it. I grew up here, but I did come back after college to get guardianship of my younger sister. Right before I started college, 2 days before my high school graduation, we lost our mother to an overdose. And so I kind of started life after that and then came back home to get guardianship of her and get an apartment for us.
Wow. That's a lot to process and a lot of things that are going on there. And it's like that's why I always love having these conversations with people, because it's just people don't know the all the different parts that kind of go into becoming someone who's creative. And it's not always, oh, I'm going to school to do this. It's their factors. This is life. There are things that happen in life that are bigger than art making, but yet they inform art making. And part of it is like the fact that industrial design, it's like I have students who don't even say that, and they're in the design program. Do you know what I'm saying? So what drew you to
Mhm.
in industrial design of all things? That's very specific. I mean,
Well, it fits perfect for me. I am more of a technical thinker. I'm not really a fine artist per se. I have taken classes and, painting classes and training to get better at that part of my art. But really, when it comes down to it, I am a builder and think more in terms of problem solving with materials and processes. So I call industrial design basically shop college. So
Shop
I
college. I
learned,
mean, wow.
yeah,
Okay.
shop college. I learned how to basically create anything my creative mind wanted to come up with. And that has really propelled, I learned mosaic art when I was 16. It has been the love of my life since. And any all my education, I guess, has really come to support that passion and what I do with that in my career. And so industrial design helps me figure out how to install these public porcelain pieces in the sidewalk and develop the team that is in house that does those things for us and all of that. So yeah, it's the process and the materials and the tools and one of my dad's favorite quotes to say is that you can build anything if you have the right tools.
That's a pretty cool. That's actually absolutely right. And I don't know if you know this, but we all in dance we talk about movement processes. You have to have tools in your tool belt to pull from in order to create movement. So it's
Hmm.
just kind of interesting. Like we always talk about that it is really more the process than anything on the creativity, but your creativity manifests itself. So I think you kind of sell yourself short on the mosaics being that this process is not that art fine art. It is a fine art because I mean mosaics are not easy materials to work with in order to plan and use. It's not easy material. I mean, talk about that. I mean, the fact that it's like who at 16 what drew you to mosaics? Most people are like, oh, let me paint or do pencil drawings, but you're like, let me get in there and crunch some porcelain and some glass bits. I mean, it's kind of
Yeah.
hardcore.
The process is, I feel like it's very easy to teach the process, snipping up bits of a material and assembling them together, is technically a mosaic. I think really I started with stained glass, and that is one of the most beautiful materials on the planet. And I still absolutely love it. And, I that's the most exciting part for me is to get a really beautiful brand new sheet of glass that I get to break up and use to create something else beautiful with it. So I feel very lucky, artists with master's degrees make that glass. So I think the material just hooked me. And then the process, and me, I must love puzzles, putting all those pieces.
Yeah. I mean, because you're taking the little bits and pieces, but they assemble to create an image or shapes and forms that are recognizable to people. I mean, that's yeah. I like how you described it as puzzles. Like you must love puzzles. Do you like puzzles?
I do love puzzles. I do more mosaicing than puzzling.
You like them. I love it. I love it. You're dealing with taking guardianship of your sister and coming back and for lack of a better term, being that adult. But you also still pursued trying to figure out how to keep that creative process going for yourself. So you get back to Dayton, and did you jump right back into mosaic making? What came first in regards to that?
When I graduated with my bachelor's, I had become very close to a lot of people in the Art Institute. Actually, when I started school, because of mosaic and my skill with that, and it being such a unique art form, and also very engaging, the Art Institute hired me very young, very quickly in school to represent them at festivals and try to pull people into the tent and show them mosaic and here's a piece of art that I'm doing live. And that worked its way into teaching community workshops and faculty development workshops at the Art Institute. So I had made some close important professional relationships there. And when I graduated from Point Park they called me and commissioned my first large scale mosaic for one of their dorms. And that piece was called Creatively Influenced. And that one was 4 foot tall by 17 foot long. And
Wow,
so,
that's
yeah,
massive. That's a massive
yeah,
scale.
it was a big deal to me back then. Now it's small, but I
I love how you
yeah.
described it as like that's small. I'm like, okay, well, right.
Yes. Not
So
now, but I was very excited about the opportunity, and my art teacher from high school who taught me mosaic helped with that piece. And right after finishing that piece and talking about it, I met Jerry Stannard of the K-12 Gallery.
okay.
And yes, this is where just being a mosaic artist and somebody who is in love with the art form and loves, creating mosaics, I learned how to lead mosaic and accomplish so much more, as far as the visual art in such a shorter amount of time. And so right away, I love the idea of, enhancing the process and getting all these hands in to accomplish a lot of work. But I also experienced just the connection and the community and the way that it brought people together at the table and the conversations that were happening at the table. And it really impacted my life as a young artist. And I decided that, me leading instead of doing was more maybe my call in life. I mean, I make my own mosaics as much as I can, but really my passion and my career has been built around that mission.
I love that. I love the fact that you talked about hearing those conversations and that connectivity and dialogue. I mean, so because you talked about it on your website. I mean, you talked about it's the increase, is a powerful catalyst to increase our levels of higher consciousness, improving our well-being, and activate the positive changes we yearn for. It's like when people talk about meeting up with people to break bread. In many
Hmm.
ways, you're breaking porcelain. I mean, is there something about that tactical experience that allows people to open up, and it just can you sense and feel the energy in the room change when people get their hands in to the porcelain?
Yes, it's really been an amazing journey, to be honest with you. So many amazing moments at the table in many different places in the city and in different communities. And over the years, the Mosaic Institute will be 8 this year, and before that, 8 years with the K-12 gallery. So for 16 years now leading collaborative art in Dayton, it has been an incredible ride for me to witness just exactly that the process is like breaking bread. First, proximity is what's important. You got to bring people together. And then creation, it opens up a part of our heart. I talk about the consciousness in that quote. It is hopeful. It's youthful. There's joy in there. We're getting down into something inside of us, and we are proud because Mosaic is an easier process. We can learn something quickly. We can be good at something that we didn't know that we were good at. And so the discovery of that and just the feelings that come with that opens the person. And that is when, when they speak and when they tell their story and when they start to communicate, that is how we can find the path towards empathy and breaking down some of those barriers of division. That's how the Republican and the Democrat can sit at the table together and realize they've both have lost a loved one and they both have broken hearts. And that is the first step to come to some kind of agreement to disagree. And so the barriers that I have seen break down in this process and just the experience and uplifting and healing that people have gone through has just been wow, it's just been awesome.
I mean that is so powerful. I mean, the fact that you talked about this as breaking down of barriers, and that everybody has a heart. We all have hearts. We all have emotions. We have feelings. And I remember because when I first met you, I met you when you were working with the community to do the mosaics for the arcade. And I remember that experience. Just that short amount of time I was there, people, little children and families, people were laughing and smiling. It was like I was like, okay, we were outdoors. At first I attributed to that, but I thought, no, upon reflection, it was like, it was this process. And I could see that when you were doing it, like you were there, that fed you in many ways. And so I was like, oh, I got to witness that. So I was like, oh yeah. Oh yeah. So that's what I was like thinking, oh my God, we got to talk to Jess about this, because how powerful that is. I mean, because I was also thinking about too, from history, almost and I could be wrong. You tell me, you studied art history as well. Cakes are pretty much a part of almost every culture.
My
Am I
goodness,
wrong?
the history is very, very long for that art. It it
Yeah.
it has been around for a very long time, yes.
Every corner of the globe has this sort of that process. And I'm like, I'm thinking that universality of that. And so, I mean, I'm not sure, because I haven't walked the perimeter of the arcade, but are the mosaics in place already at the arcade?
I
Or
have. We during Art in the City was that event, which was amazing. We interacted with over 1,000 Daytonians in one evening, and we completed the I think it was 9 foot by 12 foot gem. And that is here in the Mosaic Institute. The last entrance is under construction into the arcade, which is on the courthouse square side. That is
with
where
the,
the gem will be installed. Yeah, so I don't want any heavy, machinery rolling over that mosaic. So we are
I
waiting
don't
for the
blame
right
you.
time.
Yeah. Don't blame you, because, and so you said it's like, how big so the audience understands. Say the size again. How big is that?
It's 9 foot tall and 12 foot
Okay.
wide, a gem shape.
Wow, that's a massive size. That's massive. Okay, now I can see in comparison to the last piece you talked about that. Okay,
Mm,
I see where you're going with that one. I see where you're going with this one. So yeah, hopefully that will be done soon. And so what I love about that is that everybody in the community will be able to interact and engage with it and see
yeah.
it. And that's why I wanted to talk to you about that, because I think people to understand that people put their hearts into it. I mean, their hands, there's so thousands of hands touch that to make that happen in our community. I think that's the power of what you do. It's pretty cool. So just throwing that
It's
out there for people.
a lot of energy in that piece. Yes. It's and all of our pieces really, we are putting these pieces in the sidewalk all over
Oh
Dayton
yeah,
and
you.
beyond. So it's really cool that the community is building that legacy with their own hands.
Oh, and you're helping to guide it. Okay. So when we come back, we're going to take a little bit of a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk to Jes McMillan. We're going to talk about all the things she's doing with mosaics, but get her thoughts and takes on the community and what her next goals and plans are. So that's what's coming next.
I'm Bonnie Miles, Membership Coordinator of CET. Thank you for listening to Rodney Veal's Inspired By. This podcast is a production of CET and Think TV, two local PBS stations. As PBS stations, the work we do online, on air, and in the community is supported by listeners like you. If you're enjoying the show and would like to support our work, please consider becoming a member at cetconnect.org or thinktv.org. Plus, when you sign up to donate at least $5 a month, you'll get access to special members-only streaming videos on the PBS app through Passport. Learn more at cetconnect.org or thinktv.org. Thanks for listening, and now back to the show.
All right. So Jess, okay, you talked so passionately and so with so much, it's like connectiveness to this mosaic process. And your organization, the Mosaic Institute, has been around since, how long has it been around? I mean, you've been at this for a
We
while. It looks like 2015.
Yes, that's it. April 2015 we founded, and then we opened the doors in September in Miamisburg of that
In
year.
Miamisburg. Wow. Is that where you're from? Is Miamisburg where you're from, or was it just?
No. Yeah, it was circumstantial, I guess, kind of how we ended up there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, our community. I mean, we call ourselves Dayton, but we have different pockets of it that are identify as places. But Miamisburg, I mean, which I find kind of fascinating. I mean, with the not going into the details of the circumstances, but Miamisburg is this really cool little hidden spot of its own in many ways, and so you build this institute up to do mosaics, and I mean, folks, there are mosaics everywhere. You have a lot of work in the community. I was like looking at it and going, totally crazy. I mean, the fact that you have the one that really amazes me is the Dayton shooting memorial that you did for City Hall, Nine Doves. I mean, I've seen it. It's really powerful.
Yeah.
Was that a community based piece, or was that just you?
That was such an incredible project. We were called, the morning after the shooting by the Contemporary, having just completed, the Unity Gym at Courthouse Square during Art in the City.
Yeah.
And, we're asked, what can we do? There's planning in the works for a memorial. How can we have healing arts? How can we engage? What does that look like? What can we do? So we started, thinking, what does a design look like? What kind of collaborative mosaic can we do? And maybe a day later, I had a design submitted to the Contemporary, and we were given the green light to go ahead and go forward with creating the Nine Doves, which are, kind of signify the doves that were released at the memorial in our hands, kind of reaching up towards them. So, in order to accomplish that, which was worked on during the Gem City Shine event, participants wrote messages to the victims and the families and to Dayton and placed them in the mosaic during that event. Myself and Vincent Dietrich and Noah Fowler, two other mosaicists in Dayton, went into the studio and we worked many hours to finish all of the nine doves and the hands, in order to have, and I think the beams of light, even, we were finished with those components because we wanted the community to be able to have an emotional connection to those components in the piece as they wrote, the messages that then filled up the background behind these details. So we got it finished and we had it out and people wrote messages, and then we took it to the McMillan Gallery, which was on Brown Street then, and put it in the gallery. And many days after that, the victims' families, several of them actually came into the gallery and sat with the piece for a time, completing, kind of little areas and sections of their own messages. And I thought this piece might be installed in the sidewalk eventually, which would mean that the messages would eventually erode away, which is still a beautiful, sentiment. But Mayor Nan Whaley at the time, she gave us an amazing spot in City Hall. She even moved a TV and painted the wall for me. I was very particular.
Very particular.
Did it happen?
Especially placement. Yeah, gotta
Yes, and
happen.
you can see it, and you're right. You feel it when you read those
You
messages.
feel it.
It has kind of become a time capsule of everything that we were experiencing and feeling during that time.
And what I loved about that, because I talked to a lot of people about art and art making, and I firmly, and everybody I've talked to, I firmly believe people that art can change people and societies and can help course correct. And I think that it's not a political message, it's a human message. And so I believe in that wholeheartedly, and I think you kind of embody that with not only you taking the lead and bringing people together. You have a tendency to, and we've talked about this. Well, you like bringing people together, don't you? That's like your like your superpower. And so, I mean, in many ways, it really is just, I mean, and that's really, I find that very fascinating because a lot of people don't think of artists as leaders. And so here you are doing what you do in an art form that maybe a lot of people don't understand has that power and connectivity. And I love that you're explaining you explained it in the podcast. Tactile, getting your hands in, it opens up hearts, it brings down divisions. I'm hoping that people can look at mosaics in a different way. I don't think, because a lot of people think, I think wrong. I mean, I'm going to say this in a word, a phrase that might scare people in the audience. Decorative. It's not. I don't believe in that. It just makes me cringe. I'm like, no, there's history, there's context, there's a beauty and art to it, and you manifest that. So was it your intention all along to make sure that your work had a message, or the collaborations work on a message versus just purely decorative? Was it intentional?
Yes, it's very intentional. They are beautiful pieces of art, and we, pride ourselves on striving for artistic excellence with all of the mosaics that we are doing, as much as we can. We bring in local designers. My team is all Dayton local people that, mosaicists that I have trained, and we really, we create this beautiful product, but really the mission and the nonprofit and the reason is all about the people and bringing the people together. That is really the focus. And, as I work into this career, and we put these mosaics in the ground, it is even more so the focus as time goes on, that the conversation that we cultivate at the table is everything. Mosaic is the physical representation of community coming together to make one big beautiful picture, right? It's the easy way to see it. On the elementary school level, we get to say, look at this beautiful piece that you made together. All of the different shapes, sizes, and colors of pieces are all 100% necessary to create this final beautiful picture that we're making, just like you. It's our uniqueness that makes us so wonderful in the world, what we have to give, all these different pieces of the mosaic. And the message is beautiful. It's different for different community groups, different, with adults there's just a lot of barriers of division. There's adults in recovery. There's, we change that conversation for the healing that is necessary, I guess, for the community that's there.
That's why I'm drawn to the work you're doing, is for that reason. It's and so I'm curious, if is there with, because you would you ever consider something, maybe creating work with, because you said something about stained glass, and I remember that I'm trying to formulate the question for it, and excuse me for the NyQuil haze, but it's just, what I mean, would you ever go back to making stained glass? I'm just out of curiosity. It's a friend.
Yes, I do the mosaics that we do inside the elementary schools. Usually anything that we do that hangs indoors is made out of
Mm-hmm.
glass.
Okay.
And everything installed outside is made out of the porcelain, just
As a
because it is, yes, we need that for just the freeze and thaw and the weather here. It is a full color bodied tile, so as it erodes in layers over time, it's the same color through and through. It's not coated. It's really the right material to use for mosaics. So we do use a lot of glass. And then, of course, in my art, doing a Beauty of Brokenness series, my personal art right
okay,
now, and that is all glass as well.
that's all glass as well. Can you
Yeah.
talk about that? I mean, it's just like, is it? Talk about that series. I know you from the big public work,
Yeah.
but the intimate work, I'm getting to know you, Jess. I'm getting to know you. So what talk about that?
Well, this particular series it's really about taking that beautiful material that I mentioned, a full sheet of stained glass that is created by an artist, and attaching that to the substrate as a whole piece. Sometimes I paint under it, sometimes not. It just depends. But I will attach that entire sheet down to the substrate, and then I will take, I don't know, a crowbar, a hammer, and break the piece, break elements of the glass, and then repair it with a more detailed mosaic work in that.
Wow. I mean, you're going in. I mean, I love that. I mean, so are you planning to do a lot more personal series? Are you planning to do like all in? Because some artists love to work in large scale and they never go to the intimate projects of their own. So I'm just kind of curious. Are you planning to do even more?
Yes, I always try to do this, my own work. It's important for me to try to work that into my schedule. It is my personal connection to source. And so, it's my meditation, it's my mental health. It's all of those things us artists need to create in our ways and connect like that, how we do. So I definitely plan on pushing that in my career as I move forward, kind of more to the forefront. I would like to be able to leverage, the value behind what I have been able to do in the public, to kind of stand behind my art as an artist. I don't have the long list of all these places I've shown and this, all these works, and so I haven't really put the time in as far as that, but I've certainly put the time in other ways. And so,
Yeah,
I kind of like to put that behind me and produce some more of these pieces. I'm really excited about the process because it's something that nobody's really doing in the mosaic world. So it's new and exciting, and I'm having a lot of fun and discovering new things about an art that I love, working through it.
I love it. So speaking of this art form that you love working through, is there someone else's work of art in this genre that inspires you? Like you see it, like you think about it, or you've seen it and you've gone, oh, that's the one. I have it for ballet, so, and that would be Concerto Barocco. But for mosaics, what would be the Concerto Barocco?
Yeah, that's a great question. I that would have to be Isaiah Zagar. He is
Ooh.
one of the top mosaicists in the United States, out of Philadelphia. I turned 40 this year and went to Philly and bought one of his mosaics.
Oh
um,
wow! That's a sign of love when an artist buys another artist's work. You do know that.
yes, it is. It
That's
is.
you know it's like I have Amy Deal in our house, so I'm like I have works of Amy Deal. I'm like, yeah. It's like yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes. Isaiah is known for, over time, covering an entire neighborhood in Philly on the exteriors of the buildings, and then one main entire building mosaic. He uses all kinds of discarded materials, and through his career in doing this, he's done it enough to where people visit Philly, and there is a nonprofit dedicated to preserving his mosaics, just to kind of experience this and see. It's called the Magic Garden. I definitely recommend everyone who is in that area definitely check it out. It is a beautiful artistic site to be experienced. But I love, I don't really use discarded. You could say a mosaic is made of discarded pieces. We buy new glass and porcelain and break that. But
Okay,
Isaiah Zagar, he literally
really.
uses, the trash that we would throw away, which is another beautiful representation of community in a different way. The beauty and just the resurrecting that which could be so easily discarded, in people and in art form. And so I really admire what he's done through his career. And I didn't get to meet him, so I was a little disappointed. He's around there, but he's much older, and
Okay.
he
Oh,
wasn't. But it was still incredible to experience his art, and I'm very excited to have one of his pieces.
I love it. It just sounds like such an epic, sort of monumental conceptual work. I mean, is he considered to be an outsider artist, or is he considered to be more conceptual artist? I mean, do you know what I'm saying? Like, some people, was he trained to be a mosaicist?
No training. I think
Wow.
maybe most mosaicists around here are self-taught, or
Okay.
usually by the coast, there's more of an awareness. So kind of closer to the ocean, there's more
There's more of
mosaicists.
a,
Hmm.
okay. Okay. And so it's like, that's really interesting to kind of think of it as like more of a coastal sort of arts phenomenon, but you're here in what we could basically say the heart of the country, Ohio, heart
Yes.
of it all. I mean,
Hmm.
that's kind of, I mean, and so what's the public response to the mosaics and being engaged with the process and then seeing them installed and people interacting and engaging with them? What's the buzz on the street about this?
Well, everyone that has interacted with us and been a part of one of our projects, or even taken a class, we're doing these succulent pop-ups in places around Dayton. Anybody who has had the mosaic experience with us is has had a great experience. I would say is a fan for life. I think that the light
Yay.
bulb
Yes.
yeah, the light bulb is just coming on, I think, for Dayton, as far as these sidewalk pieces, these big porcelain public art
Mm,
pieces, because that is a really important part of Dayton's future. In my mind, in my heart, what I believe, what I'm trying to do is that I believe that people will also visit Dayton one day to play these games. They're interactive. Let's say I spend, the next 30 years putting games in the ground. We'll say 20, I want to retire and do some fun stuff. But
you're
let's say I fill the city with these games, and then I think that people will come to play them, and it will be a unique factor in a unique city. And, I said before, the best part is that this community is building that legacy for themselves with their hands. I'm a part of it, I'm leading it, but in the end, I think they'll see, all the pieces come together of what we're trying to build. And so right now we're just starting to gain some momentum. I think, more people are starting to call us than me saying, hey, you want a mosaic?
right, right, exactly. It's like it's more driven by the community saying we're kind of jumping in on this. I mean, and so I feel I love the fact that you're talking about like that you see Dayton growing and expanding, because we had the same similar conversation with Ron Rollins. Do you know Ron Rollins?
I do.
Yeah, it was a really interesting conversation about the city and the community and where it's at and where it's going. I think we're all feeling like, yeah, okay, this is the right time to jump into what your personal practice is. It is the right time
Hmm.
to kind of engage the community. It's just ripe. It's absolutely ripe, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you, because you're. I kind of thought that. I mean, I've talked to you. We've talked before, Jess. I mean, full disclosure, folks. I do talk to other people other than my cat, and 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 I just think it's very fascinating to me. Like all the conversations are about, is this ripe for potential, and let's do this. I love this idea of games embedded in the streets, on the sidewalks, that people can interact and engage with. I mean, is that, it's not scaring people off, is it? I mean, I'm hoping it's not. I mean,
I don't.
games, come on. So I'm just so super excited about it. So Jess, before we kind of step off from this conversation, what do you like? What do you want to demystify, or let's put it this way, a 30-second elevator speech about mosaics that to convince people they need to give it a try, come try out a workshop, come engage as a community member with mosaics. Go.
Okay. Well, I would love for every one of you to join us either making a public art mosaic when we pop up or taking one of our classes. I know that you will have a great experience. You will learn something new, possibly about yourself, but definitely that you have skills that you didn't know. And you're going to connect to people also. Maybe some you know in a deeper way, maybe some that you don't know, and you'll make a new friend. But there is no reason not to come and join us. Either have a great experience for yourself or take part in something so much bigger than you, it's just going to make your heart explode.
I love it. Yes, it will. And it really will. I mean, I have to say, you're dedicated to this proposition wholeheartedly, folks. And I just think that Jess is just very inspiring. So Jess, I'm so glad we had a chance to have this conversation. I can't wait to share this with the world. So
Thank
you're
you
just
so much.
amazing. You're a real catalyst for changing our community, and I'm really glad you're here.
Well, I love you all. I love Dayton, and thank you so much.
Rodney Veal's Inspired By is a production of Public Media Connect, the regional partnership of CET in Cincinnati and Think TV in Dayton. There's a lot of great art happening around Southwest Ohio, and we're excited to be part of it. If you like this episode, please subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can learn more and find the show notes at thinktv.org/inspired by or cetconnect.org/inspired by. Thank you.